This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. April is Autism Awareness Month, and in this episode, we thought we'd spend some time talking about how people are becoming more aware of this disorder. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention defines autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, as a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. What exactly these differences are can vary widely from person to person, and that's why the disorder is often seen as a spectrum. The CDC started testing children as young as 8 years old for autism back in 2000 to better understand the scope and characteristics of children with ASD and similar developmental disabilities, which can often be tricky to diagnose. In the 2 decades since, the rates of diagnosis have seen a sharp uptick, increasing from 1 in 158-year-olds diagnosed with ASD in 2000 to 1 in 36 in 2020. It's worth noting, even though more children than ever before are being diagnosed with autism, researchers say it does not necessarily mean that ASD itself is becoming more common.
We know that increased awareness and acceptance of the diagnosis definitely contributes. We also have better early screening practices as well. So pediatricians are screening more consistently and earlier on for signs and symptoms of autism.
So how do you know if someone has ASD? Doctors say the common signs to watch for are delays in speech and certain facial expressions.
They may also have a hard time responding to their name or responding to others in general when others are trying to get their attention.
As we said earlier, diagnosing ASD isn't easy. There's no medical test for it, and doctors need to look at the child's history of development and behavior to diagnose it.
For such a long time with our first daughter, I'm getting a little emotional, we felt like we were failing her somehow because we didn't know. And all we saw were these symptoms getting worse and worse. We had to push. We got the appointment, level 2 autism.
Parents Nicholas and Arid Eddy say the word spectrum really made sense when their second daughter got diagnosed with autism. It tends to be 4 times more common in boys than girls, but thanks to a rise in screening and awareness, the Eddy family say they were able to get a diagnosis for their younger daughter within a matter of months.
My children are brilliant. My kids are so smart and talented and empathetic and sweet and energetic and have such a zest for life. I feel really hopeful about the future.
Their story underscores the need for robust screening methods because not everyone gets an early life diagnosis.
I think it's a superpower.
Former New York State Assemblywoman Yuleen New spoke with Scripps News last year just as she was jumping into a congressional race. She told us about how her autism diagnosis, which came in her 20s, connected a lot of the dots from her childhood.
To me, it explained a lot of things in my life.
New, who was the first Asian American elected to the state assembly in her district, which includes Chinatown, lost her race for Congress. But if she'd been elected, she would have been the first to do so with autism. It's the kind of representation she still hopes to see.
Representation is important on so many levels, especially in government, when it comes to the laws and the things that we're creating that impact everyone. Because people don't realize this, but every issue is a disability issue.
Speaking of representation, popular shows like Atypical and The Proud Family are starting to include more characters with ASD. Entertainment correspondent Casey Mendoza shows us the impact it's having.
From medical dramas to family cartoons, more television series are highlighting what it's like to live with autism spectrum disorder, a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. Earlier this year, a clip from the Disney Plus original series The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, went viral for what several viewers called an honest depiction of an autism diagnosis.
BB is highly intelligent, absolutely fearless. It's a common indicator of...
An indicator of what?
It really highlights, the fact there are some people out there that equate people on the spectrum with being, you could fill in the blank, like not really good things. So just like Mr. Proud in that clip.
27-year-old Matthew Kenslow is the author of Juggling the Issues, Living with Asperger's Syndrome, a memoir about living on the autism spectrum and facing discrimination growing up. He says the representation of ASD in the Proud Family revival is accurate, both because of Mr. Proud's immediate negative reaction and the episode's thorough explanation of the need for early intervention and support.
Needing support doesn't equate to lack of ability.
Along with the Proud Family, characters with ASD are leading shows like The Good Doctor, the Netflix K-drama Extraordinary Attorney Woo, the family drama Atypical, and the freeform sitcom Everything's Gonna Be Okay, which starred actress Kayla Cromer, who is on the autism spectrum herself. The wide range of characters with ASD across different genres builds on the representation, notably started in 1988 with the film Rain Man. Several critics say the film furthered harmful stereotypes about people with ASD, and writer Carl Knights, who also lives with autism, noted, "Before Rain Man, there was no popular conception of what autism looked like, among the public or on screen."
One of the earliest representations that I resonated with was Miracle Run. It's a Lifetime movie in like 2004. So I was like 9 years old. And I watched that, like 100 times. I really enjoyed it. It really explained autism. And this was actually before I knew that I had the diagnosis a few years prior. And then in recent years, you have The Good Doctor. I personally liked the show. I will say not every person with autism has a photographic memory. But I thought that was very nice. I think that the show also captured very well the amount of like teasing or bullying that a person with autism may have endured growing up.
Autism consultant Melissa Reiner works on the set of The Good Doctor to help with the show's representation of ASD. But other experts like Allison Singer, the president of the Autism Science Foundation, writes that the show, and others like it, don't go far enough. For Spectrum News, an outlet dedicated to autism research, Singer wrote, "What we see on TV and in movies reflects our own reluctance to deal with the enormous burdens severe autism places on individuals and families." Other critics argue more actors on the spectrum should portray characters with autism, and Kenslow says more representation in general can help audiences better understand that everyone with autism is different, and he hopes his own book, as well as videos he makes for social media, can help people learn more.
What really is reassuring to my heart is hearing how I've encouraged people or people who kind of desire to know more details, and they just want to ask me like advice on how to help their friends feel included.
Kenslow has more than 80,000 subscribers on YouTube and 1 million followers on Instagram. Going forward, he hopes to not only push for better autism awareness in society, but acceptance. Casey Mendoza, Scripps News, Chicago.